Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, taking a look at a very intriguing Week 2 matchup as we got Big Ten ACC going down as Purdue heads on the road to play a Virginia Tech team that there is a lot of buzz around this program. And I'll say this right now, goosebumps seeing the entrance in the Lane Stadium against Old Dominion. As a college football fan, I really do want to make it down there. Some of the best fans in the country, and this one's at Lane Stadium. It's going to be rocking, and honestly, some really intriguing matchups in this game and some cool storylines. We're going to get into it now. Before we do again, just want to say thank you to you guys. There's been a ton of support for all these game breakdowns. Can't thank you guys enough for all the support. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, the best part about doing these, learning from you guys. So whether you agree with the takes, whether you disagree, would love to hear you guys in the comment section. I learn a lot from you guys. I love chopping it up about football with you guys. So appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. And let's get into this game now. Takeaways from last week, Virginia Tech, I would start with, they hit on some guys in the transfer portal, especially at that wide receiver position. You can look at that offense and how it's running, and they just got more athletes. They got more weapons for Grant Wells. I thought Grant Wells looked pretty sharp, took care of the football, pushed the ball downfield when he needed to. Now, one negative, I think, is that offensive line, I think, still needs work. And I've talked to a lot of Virginia Tech fans kind of in the summer months and said, yeah, they brought in some transfers. They kind of missed on some high quality guys. And it's a unit that is not necessarily great, but it's getting better. But the lack of ability to run the football effectively against Old Dominion definitely stood out as something Virginia Tech certainly needs to work on throughout this 2023 season. But again, that passing attack, much, much better from what you saw in 2022. And I think largely it's because you got some weapons for Grant Wells. I mean, Ollie Jennings is a dude. You take a look at Lane, Felton. Those guys are really, really good. Was impressed with them on the defensive side of the ball. Phenomenal. We'll talk about some of the players and how they match up. And you look at Purdue coming off of a very tough loss against Fresno State. My critique on the defensive side of the ball is they were just getting kind of pieced up by Fresno State's passing attack, and they didn't really see. I was a little bit surprised that a Ryan Walters led team didn't really make any adjustments. I mean, you look at Fresno State, they gave up over 350 yards to a Fresno State passing attack that I didn't think was that great. And so you're a little bit concerned about that. On the offensive side of the ball, I think it just lacked a little bit of an identity. I think they wanted to run the football effectively. That being said, some injuries on the offensive line didn't allow them to. So now it gets to the point of how these teams match up with one another. And I want to go to the Virginia Tech offense versus this Purdue defense that, again, struggled in a big-time way defending the pass. And I think right now, as it speaks, Virginia Tech's best aspect of their offense is pushing the ball down the field. Again, I am high on Grant Wells. I don't think he got a fair shake. I think the offensive line struggled last year. I didn't think he had really any playmakers to go to. Although the offensive line probably still is not elite, I think the playmakers on the outside are certainly much better. And you saw probably Grant Wells' best performance to date at Virginia Tech. So from a matchup standpoint, I wonder if Virginia Tech can kind of get some of these pass catchers loose against a Purdue defense that was just, for lack of better terms, just kind of getting cut up by a Fresno State passing attack that I'm not sure I think is that great. So I do like that matchup. In terms of running the football, Purdue was pretty good stopping the run against Fresno State. Virginia Tech, not great at running the ball against Old Dominion. I'll say this, if you struggle to kind of move some bodies against Old Dominion, I think you'll struggle to move some bodies against Purdue, but I do think you can get them in the back end. Now, moving to this Purdue offense matching up against this Virginia Tech defense, I want to start with the Virginia Tech defense and how impressed I was. Antoine Powell, he's coming over from Florida. We kind of missed him on the preview, and we started talking a little bit about him late in the summer. He's a guy, and you talk about like who is going to turn up the heat. I love this Virginia Tech secondary. I think it's a really good group. That being said, who is going to get some pressure off the edge? I think we got our answer in Antoine Powell. And I'll tell you this right now, as a Buffalo Bills fan, having Tremaine Edmonds coming from Virginia Tech, and this is a while ago, Kelly Lawson gives you some Tremaine Edmonds vibes and how athletic, how fast, how big he is. He flies around the football, always behind the line of scrimmage. Really good secondary I was pleasantly surprised with how good this front seven was in terms of stopping the run and getting after the passer. This Virginia Tech defense, I think, is top half in the country. And I mean, it was solid last year, even though that offense just put them in bad spots. I think as the offense puts Virginia Tech's defense in less bad spots, I think you're going to see some massive strides on the stat sheet in terms of how good this Virginia Tech defense is. And the Purdue offense, my only concern with Purdue, I like Hudson Card. I think he played solid, but you look back at that game against Fresno State, not really much of an identity. When it was third and short, they wanted to play some bully ball and move the chains on the ground, and they just didn't have the guys up front to do so. I mean, Devin Mockabee is a solid running back, but because of all the injuries up front on the offensive line, they struggled to run the football effectively when they needed to. And then through the air, I mean, they hit some big plays, which was nice to see. But in terms of a down to down efficiency, Hudson Card was not necessarily great in terms of moving the ball through the air. So my concern with Purdue on the offensive side of the ball is just, what's the identity of this team when they need to go move the chains and they need a play? Like, can you run the football? Can you go in and spread it out and throw the ball around the yard? I'm not sure whether you have really much of an identity there. Now, moving to the game pick, Virginia Tech at home. I expect this environment. I don't give too much of home field advantages. Normally, when I'm making picks, I'm just picking probably the best team. You know what I mean? Like what teams I'm high on. I'll say this: Virginia Tech and that home field advantage, it's going to be there. You saw them get up for an Old Dominion game. They will be up for this game. The team's already started 1-0. You got a Big Ten team coming into town. There's a lot of buzz around Plattsburgh and Lane Stadium. I expect it to be jumping. Virginia Tech 3-point favorites. I'm leaning Virginia Tech here, and this is not a play that I'm like super confident of because I would like to still see a little bit more of a sample size against a better quality of opponent for Virginia Tech. But you look at that Virginia Tech program, I think clearly going in the right direction. I think there's a lot of buzz around this program. And right now, you watch back the Old Dominion performance for Virginia Tech and the Fresno State performance for Purdue. I mean, you're probably trusting this Virginia Tech team a little bit more than Purdue. Now, before we close out, that's not me ragging on Purdue. I think they crushed it with the hire with Ryan Walters. I think it's just similar to Brent Pry taking over last year. There's going to be some growing pains. A lot of guys left the portal. You have a lot of new faces coming in. The schemes are going to be dramatically different. You went from having Jeff Bryan to Ryan Walters. So Purdue fans, like I love the hire. You just got to be patient. But right now, I think Virginia Tech's just a little further in the development process with their new coach. Give me the Hokies. This is going to be a very fun game again. Lane Stadium, one of the best college football environments out there. Appreciate you guys checking the boys out. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.